totally awesome, fantastic AP Human Geography students. So today we are looking at 1.6 scales of analysis. And our tidbit of the day is that most power outages in the United States are caused by squirrels. Okay, so our lesson objectives today are to define scales of analysis used by geographers and to explain what scales of analysis reveal. So the first thing we're looking at is map scale, and map scale is a little bit different than a scale of analysis. So this is our zooming in and out to tell a story. And on this side, this is really what we think of as scales of analysis. So we look at global, regional, state, country, national, substate, which means state as we think of states, county, city, local, and then census tract. Okay. So small scale maps show large amounts of area with small amounts of detail. They are zoomed way out, and we would see a very big number on a verbal scale, a ratio, but big number on the map. So when we're looking here, over here, this is our small scale map, very big picture, very big number on the bottom. So 1 to 94 million. A large scale map shows a small area in large amounts of detail. So it's zoomed in, and this is a smaller number on the map. So we'll kind of go over this a little bit differently on the next slide. But large scale on this end, large amount of detail, small area. So again, a small scale is small details or small scale, big picture. A large scale is large detail, so lots of detail, or large scale, small picture. And I know it's a little bit confusing, so go over that a few times, make those notes really clear for yourself. All right, looking at scales of analysis, and this is really saying what scale are we analyzing, which seems really redundant when I say it like that, but it'll be a little bit clearer, I think. So the global scale of analysis, we're looking here at a global scale map, and essentially we are analyzing different states, different countries, or nations. But that's not technically the correct word for human geography. But we're looking at different countries. And here we can see, we just look at the whole of the United States, the whole of Egypt, the whole of South Africa, the whole of particular countries compared to each other. So we're comparing and contrasting countries around the world. And I want you to take a second, look at this, because we're looking at extreme poverty and what percent of the population is living in extreme poverty. All right, so next up is the national scale map. So we're looking at one nation, one country. In this context, we are looking at what we call a sub-state level of analysis. Sub-state meaning it's smaller than the greater state, and state is really what we think of as country in human geography. So that we call them states in the US is a little bit different than what the human geography state means. And that's why we look at sub-states, so below state, less than state. But in the US, we can just think of it as what we think of as these states. So here we're looking within a single country, and we're looking at a little bit more detail than we look on the big country scale. So as compared to each other, we're looking at basically the same thing. So the percentage of people in poverty that we looked at with that last map. And if you look now, we start to see that there's a lot more poverty than what it looked like in that first map for the whole of the United States. And I want you to take a moment and note 3 things on here. So make sure you count in Alaska, Hawaii, and really importantly, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is not a state, but it is a U.S. territory. Puerto Ricans are Americans. Okay, So different scales will reveal variations in spatial patterns. And here we're looking at those same two maps that are comparing that same thing, so the percentage of people in poverty, but we see a very different story. So I want you to take a moment, compare these two, and write down, what do you notice? What changes are there and why? That why is super, super important. So take a moment, write a sentence or two about those. Okay, so the national scale map, again, same scale, that national scale, but now we're looking at counties instead of substate. We could still kind of count it that way, but county is much more specific here. Again, same thing. We're looking at poverty rates. And what do you notice? So this is going to give us a nice comparison between the two, but this one does not compare Puerto Rico, but that's okay because we still have most of the other detail. But notice where poverty is. Again, what do you notice? What changes are there and why? What is causing those changes? Okay. Here we're looking at a local scale map. And this level of analysis, again, local level of analysis, is going to be a lot more specific than the other ones that we've looked at. These are census tracts. And we talked about census in a different video, where census is where we go around every 10 years and collect all the data about people, or as much as possible. And each one of those places where they collect that census is called a census tract. So it's split up. It's just another dividing of an area. This is the closest that we get to the size of an actual neighborhood. So here, again, we're still looking at levels of income. So on the left-hand side, we're looking at the highest medium income household, or highest medium household incomes. And on the right-hand side, we're looking at the lowest one. So a similar detail, but what would happen if we looked at this on a smaller scale? And here we're looking at a regional scale map. And a region is a little bit different. Sometimes it's all within a country, but more often it includes at least part of a country, along with other countries in there. But here we're largely looking at areas in Africa. So in this case, we're looking at a particular region. Not the entirety of sub-Saharan Africa, but quite a bit of it. But we are looking in this particular case at the largest forcibly displaced population, so people who have been forced out of their homes. And then over here, we're looking at maternal mortality in Ethiopia and sub-Saharan Africa. So Ethiopia would be a country, sub-Saharan Africa would be a region. And we want to see how many deaths per 100,000 live births do we have with women. So mortality means how many die. And maternal refers to mothers. So we're talking about women who die within the first year of childbirth, or first year after childbirth. And if we look at sub-Saharan Africa, we see quite a few more as a whole than we do in Ethiopia by 2015. What do those changes tell you? It makes certain implications. All right, that's it. So again, our lesson objectives were to define scales of analysis used by geographers and to explain what those scales of analysis reveal. And I want you to wrap these notes up by explaining how scale of analysis can change data interpretations. And I want you to note, use an example, but don't use one that we looked at in the slideshow. So use your reading, you can look at another set of maps, but use something outside of what was in this slideshow. And that's it for today. Bye.